Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure being here and talk about lifestyle with my panel. It's the explosion of lifestyle brands, or maybe shall we say slash labels. What we have been talking before was very interesting. Almost every brand launched today is called lifestyle. So when we have been preparing for this panel, we said that could be a quite philosophic discussion, because we want to tell you what everybody thinks about lifestyle, what does lifestyle stand in our industry. But that's not the only thing we are going to do. We look into what kind of lifestyle we're living now post-COVID. Has our lifestyle changed, and how is the industry reacting to that? What is new on the market? And of course, we have a crystal ball, and we look into the future, because in my panel, I have my industry experts and thought leaders of the hospitality industry. Let me please introduce to you, and I start with Tim. Tim Zeichert is representing the brands, and he is working for Marriott, and he represents 30 brands in total. Among them, and this is very interesting, is the first lifestyle brand ever, which is the W Hotels. But we also have been discussing about Bulgari, because it's very interesting what they can achieve for the owners in terms of rates. But also soft brands like Design Hotel, Autograph Collection, and also Moxy is a lifestyle brand, even though it's for a completely different market. Next to him, we have Roland Bahr. He's from Soravia, managing director of So Hospitality, and he represents the development part of the industry. The first one, and we will start with him, who is thinking about who is my partners. Soravia have been developing Ruby Hotels, and Numa Hotels, and they are now also in the resort properties, and we will find great places on the Austrian lakeside and on the Tegernsee in Germany. We have Rémi Lefebvre representing Intercontinental Hotels, 18 brands in total, including Travel Club Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but interesting, Six Senses can also be called a lifestyle brand, Kimpton, and a soft brand like Vignette, just recently opened in Budapest. And next to me is Daniel Schneider. He's managing partner or owner of Monoplan, the architectural point of view, also very much in the beginning of the development and working very close with all the guys here. They have been developing Ruby Hotels, Moxy Hotels, and for Althoff, Boutique Hotels. So among many more, he can give us his overview a little bit later. So I would like to ask Roland to start from his perspective as the developer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brigitte. Good morning, everyone. So what is the model of developers? We all know we develop property. Property has to be hotel property, has to be placed with a brand. We feel with a brand. I think the hotel space for independent operators has become more and more difficult. Family-operated hotels are certainly a successful model, but going in the future, I think when you're looking at from a global perspective, international travelers, driving ADRs, loyalty programs, etc., you tend to look for a brand initially. That's what most of the developers do. Then we develop to standard, and then we sell. So we all know that. In the past, in the days of when Marriotts and Intercontis and Hiltons of this world came up, it was a very clear value proposition. You get access to my system, you get my know-how, but you have to take a very strong brand with brand standards, with everything that comes in with it, a certain investment, etc. We then saw in the development world that for many of the properties, these brands don't work all the time anymore. I think a lot of market disruptors came into place then in a certain time, about 10, 15 years ago, and were building up their own portfolio of brands even longer. If you think of when Ian Schrager entered the space already 30 years ago or so, they saw that with this very stiff jacket of brands, you can't scale your model that quickly, that fast anymore, when you're not flexible enough. And especially in the last 10, 15 years, when you got more operators, especially in Europe as well, US, yes, as well, but I think in US, because of the vast market in the mid-scale, there was a lot of brand loyalty. But in Europe, we always saw regional independent brands. We saw the rise of Motel Ones. We saw 25 Hours and other brands. I think everyone started to grasp that you have to become more individual, okay? So to us as developer, we saw that. We liked it as well, because what is a piece of real estate? It's an individual, for us always, especially when you're going brownfield, which we like, but it's an individual piece of real estate, so it doesn't fit everyone. We developed, for example, the Motel One here in Vienna. It's a heritage-listed property. It's something a brand operator would have had big difficulties back then. Or Ruby, for example, Ruby Sophie, also heritage-listed property. So in that development, for us or in that evolution of hotel brands, for us as developer, we saw it as a real good gift that you saw more and more independent brands. Now today, we're talking about lifestyle brands. I don't see that word lifestyle brand. Lifestyle is always like, what is your lifestyle? I used to work in the luxury space for a long time. You also had loyalty to Four Seasons, and this was your lifestyle, staying in a Four Seasons hotel anywhere in the world. Would you consider Four Seasons a lifestyle brand? No. So I think you have to differentiate the way somebody travels and the way somebody likes to stay in a place, in a hotel, or in a different accommodation space. And then this is his lifestyle, and then he chooses a certain brand or a value proposition. And this is what we see also as developer. Every time we look at a property, we look at the location, we look somewhere where we would like to invest in a hotel company. We look at this, what is the value proposition? What is the way a traveler would like to stay in this property with this brand? And then we make our decision what's best.
Okay, thank you very much. Let us see the perspective of the architect who is actually next in line.
Thank you very much for having me here. First, I kind of like the title, why maybe we should put it in a way that lifestyle brand inflation is maybe, according to the actual market situation, the better title. Why? I mean, we are coming from a time, I think all of us would agree that storytelling and lifestyle was one of the biggest, or a big driver, let's say, in hospitality. Maybe popping down from the luxury and upper upscale segment to even the economy. You mentioned Motel Ones or whatever it is. And it was, let's say, the way to do hotels in the last years. Nevertheless, it was mainly defined by service, or reducing service, by the way, and guest approach, and also design, look and feel. But we also have this, as I said, inflation, because if you look at the existing lifestyle or so-called lifestyle brands, and if you just delete the logo and the name of the hotel brand maybe, they are, to be diplomatic, very similar in look and feel, and maybe, you know, you can go to see the lobby here. It's also a lifestyle product, but maybe, you know, if you change the logo outside, it could be also one of your products. We will learn later maybe. So the main question is, for me, as of now, looking back, storytelling, lifestyle, design, interior design, which is my profession, I know, but nevertheless was the only differentiating moment or the definition for lifestyle. And if I see, or if I do an outlook for the next years to come, there will be different drivers maybe to define a lifestyle, because Roland said it correctly. I mean, it's the way of living, or your way of living. And it could be maybe also the, I don't know, the Four Seasons way of living as a lifestyle. But maybe topics like ESG, And digitalization will be more, maybe also a way of lifestyle, and very important for customers and guests. And then automatically it would be also important and relevant for us as hoteliers, developers, or designers. And the impact of those into the look and feel and into the public areas and the hotel, this is just the beginning. It will be coming.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daniel. Tim, Daniel said we are seeing, or we could maybe change the title to inflation. I mean, you're representing 30 brands, so what is your opinion on that?
Well, indeed. I mean, the title of the lifestyle brand explosion is probably also a little bit motivated by Marriott from the success of their brands in the past, which maybe have become a little bit of a standard for the entire industry now. So if we look at one of the front runners, like the W brand, which was founded in 1998, you can surely say that probably this was one of the first lifestyle brands, especially in the luxury segment. And across our diverse set of brands, we have a number of lifestyle brands I would like to single out. I mean, we do have Moxy in the economy lifestyle segment, where we have grown just within 8 years from 0 to now 235, including Pipeline, which in the beginning I would say defined the lifestyle segment in a standardized way very clearly. But since now everyone is doing it, it becomes the standard. And whilst it's still a lifestyle, it's maybe less of a, let's say, surprise, which it was in the beginning with W, or likewise with the Moxy brand. And surely, I mean, we discussed all types of lifestyle, and I would argue that definitely also brands in the luxury segment, in the more classic segment, can be defined as lifestyle. You referred to Bulgari, for instance. Surely it's a rather exclusive brand with only 7 open hotels, but people are paying north of $1,000 ADR as an average, and RevPAS, even RevPAS at north of that 4-digit figure. And I would argue that that is a lifestyle, a true commitment to lifestyle too. And when we look outside of the hotel industry, whether it's what you eat, what you wear, there is certainly different lifestyles that everyone is living. And that is probably also can be very much replicated into the hotel industry. And yeah, I think that as such, it's all about the experience that one has, and it evolves. And we're obviously part of that, but with a limitation, and that's maybe linking it to the developers and the architects, to the piece of real estate, what you said, Roland, right? Because at the end, I mean, everything about lifestyle and hotels at the moment is more defined through the interior design, the FF&E, surely also the experience behind it. But the real estate is so defining that probably in the future, and we might talk about that later, that there's more than what we traditionally think of lifestyle, looking backwards at our historic developments that we all do, that something is probably changed fundamentally in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking at your Vignette Hotel in Budapest, I've found 3 keywords there, and which is authentic, experiential, and considerate. So how do you select these partnerships with Vignette? This is one question. The next question would be talk about Six Senses, which is a completely different lifestyle.
Right. How many hours do we have? I'll try to be succinct. But on the Vignette side, so it's a brand that we launched last year, and we've now arrived at 17. Have like a hotel signed to open, and actually Werner House in Budapest is our 9th open hotel, if I'm not mistaken. So that opened a couple of weeks back, which is amazing to see. And for us, Vignette is was the missing piece in our portfolio, especially on the luxury and lifestyle side, which was how do we look at having an offering for every type of project and opportunity, but also every type of vision behind the asset. So I think every time we find a new partner, and it's the case with many of you in the room, I think you always have a vision for that specific asset, right? There's always something behind it. There's always an idea whereby you see that building for the first time and you see the potential, you see what it could become. And for us, the most exciting piece is being able to be part of that conversation. And what was missing from the portfolio was very much the idea of you already have that vision, you already know what you want to do there, and potentially have amazing partners locally that can bring that to life from an interior design standpoint, for instance, or architectural standpoint. That's great. How can we help you, but in a softer way, potentially? And I think that's really what we wanted to bring to fore with Vignette Collection. I think if you look at some of our other brands on the lifestyle side, so say a Kimpton, for instance, which starts in 81, I'll do a little pike at Tim over there, because many would consider Kimpton to be the start of the boutique segment, which I think came to evolve into being that lifestyle element that we talked about. It is a little bit different, obviously, but I think there was that evolution between that boutique element, which was very much Europe-inspired, by the way, in the way we did hospitality here, you know, from the get-go, right? And that then kind of like permeated through other regions and became what I think we know now as like that boutique lifestyle segment in different scales, right? To go back to the Six Senses question, though, I think the original idea was behind Six Senses was very much to create a place that would be quite remote and quite encapsulated, and in a way you would be able to find yourself there. So it's that idea of like starting from within, which is very much the ethos of the brands. And from the get-go, if you look at some of our, 15, 16 first hotels, like none of them was in an urban environment. It was very much the idea of that more remote, secluded place where you could, you know, have time to do that and to really find yourself and reconnect. And I think that's where we're now looking at bringing that a little bit more to urban environment with Six Senses Rome opening last week, for instance. But for us, the ethos very much remains the same. So it's the idea of like connection and starting from within.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
can I add? I would like to add something because I do like your brands that you mentioned, and the same, Tim, to be fair, great brands, and we have worked nicely together, so appreciate it. Nevertheless, if I listen to you, because we in the end, we are service providers. We take what we have as a brand DNA, and we try to implement into a design.
I don't like service provider. I think visionary is a better word, but
I was trying to be diplomatic, but doesn't matter. So, but what is lacking, I would say, that as you said correctly, that as of now, lifestyle is very much defined. Maybe Six Senses is a little different, but in principle from the look and feel and the FF&E and interior design. And all the big topics of the future, like people, which means staffing, guest, how do we treat our employees, community, digitalization, ESG, is lacking. So when I listen to your Vignette claims, I forgot what was the three?
Authentic,
Yeah, exactly.
experimental, and considerate.
Nice. Whoever designed them, nice. But it is like I've heard many times before. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying, as of now, in our business, there's a lack of, really looking forward into the future, being or implementing those big challenges or big topics of our future business into a brand DNA. And then it would be great to see what would this mean for interior design, look and feel, and architecture. And that would be a challenging and interesting discussion. But it's missing as of today.
if we have time, I would love to talk about toilets at some point, because that's a really important piece of what you're saying about diversity and inclusion. And I think that permeates through design, as you're saying, but also through everything else. And it's one of the touch points that you tend to forget about because, why do you want to think about that, right? You want to see the beautiful renders of your living spaces and all that. You don't really want to see the renders of, that. But that's a truly important part of the vision that you have for the asset and the kind of persons that you want to be, that you want to have working there and that you want to welcome as well. And having them gendered and non-gendered, having them to be accessible and inaccessible, all that is super important and is a small thing, but a very important part of the design. Anyways.
Roland, you want to add something?
Well, Daniel and we agreed today that we're not going to do operator bashing, okay? Because I think everyone is doing a great job, in how they develop what I said earlier. I know the companies with various brands, they look at the customer expectations. But there's one thing we all kind of tend to, with the big hotel companies, forget. Brands are created by an idea. That's what Rupert just said early on. And I agree 100%, okay? It starts with an idea and a vision, okay? If I look at Ian Schrager, if I look at Izzy Sharp, if I look at Adrian Zecker, Horst Schulze, etc., etc. These were all visionaries. More recent ones, we were lucky to be partner and invested in the brand very early on. We co-founded Ruby Hotels. I consider Michael as a visionary because he knew at that time, you know what, the real estate market is going to change. There's not going to be, standard jackets anymore to fit everyone. And we developed Ruby Hotels, which are amazing. None of these is the same like any other. Here in Vienna alone, you have 3 hotels. One used to be a shopping center, the other one a theater, and the third one was the embassy of the Philippines. In Zurich, we developed an ex-cinema. Now, if as the VP development, and I know that very well, you go today to a hotel company and say, you know what, let's convert the cinema, they're gonna throw you out, okay? They say, that's gonna take forever. How long, how many different footprints, how are you gonna fit in there? What about FLS, that's gonna be crazy, we need at least 70 new signings, by this year. So you know what? Let's talk to the brand department, come up with 3 funny taglines, okay, and say it's curated, it's accessible, it's blah, blah, blah. But nobody knows what that means. A customer, a guest, a hotel guest, when he walks in a hotel, doesn't give 2 cents about curated, accessible, or blah, blah, blah. He's not interested in that. And that's the reality. I understand, okay, that brands need an image, okay? Somebody who reads that needs to understand Ruby. Ruby uses lean luxury. Okay, hopefully most of our guests understand that you have high quality of beddings, you have excellent lighting, you have very good amenities, shower amenities you would not get in a normal budget hotel, etc., etc. So it's in a way luxury, but it's lean because you have small footprints, you don't have a 3-meal restaurant, etc., okay? We use taglines, but they're sometimes overused because at the end of the day, nobody knows anymore the difference between this, that, or the other brand. And what do they do at the end of the day? They look at a nice app, they open Bonvoy and say, how many points have I gained this year? And can I stay 10 nights in a Ritz-Carlton somewhere nice? Because that's what I want.
And that's when you start developing autograph collections or tribute portfolio hotels, right? Which he did, by the way.
But yes, we did that, and we are very happy about that. And one big reason why we did an autograph collection? Because it doesn't have any taglines. Because you don't try to fulfill what you don't need, okay? You don't need that excessive branding and excessive, painting an image about something. Autograph collection is a very simple value proposal. You get part of Bonvoy, you have full flexibility, and you as an owner, developer, and operator, you develop a brand, an independent brand, to the individual property and location, okay, with the company together. You're gonna pay me later for this.
Nothing to be added.
There's gonna be more key money, So, but that's very important to understand. What is the difference between an individual, independent brand, especially in the leisure segment, and between a funny image brand,
Okay, thank you very much. We heard something before which was called lessons learned, and I just want to know from all of you what are the lessons we learned over the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, how you maybe adapt to the new lifestyles which are coming up. People are more concerned about sustainability. ESG is a huge part of it. How do you integrate the S, for example, in the ESG? Also, there is a lot of trends going on, not only going on leisure, but also doing business and the other way around. So pleasure is one of the words we are hearing, co-working, etc. Maybe Tim can give us an example on that.
I mean, surely Corona has changed from a development perspective where we grow. So it's obviously less new builds in the big cities, simply because of the lack of financing we see in the region. So there is a lot of conversions or adaptive reuse, so over 50% of the signed deals, which we do, but they have shifted towards the rebranding conversion definition. And with that vehicle, it comes that we need to become a little bit more flexible, obviously. That's why brands like Autograph Collection or Tribute Portfolio or also Luxury Collection are currently probably the brands that we grow best with. I would argue they also fall quickly into the lifestyle segment, outlined by the facts that Roland just shared with us. It just create their own brand DNA and are highly flexible in terms of room sizes, layout, and we can be also a little bit more flexible in terms of phasing them into our system. But it's all about scale, so we learned from a development perspective that we have to be more flexible, and from a business perspective, luckily, how resilient our business actually is. I mean, we just looked at the figures, and looking at 2019 compared to 2022, we are happy to say that we already managed to have an increase on comparison to that year, to that good year of 2019. And I believe it's about 5% RevPAR. And that just shows that our business model as such is quite solid, but we're growing more into the flexible development scene now.
Okay, super, thank you. How does that affect you, Daniel, as an architect?
First, I would say that it's totally understandable and reasonable why most of the big operators are growing in the collection standard, let's say, if it's Vignette, whatever, or Autograph, because it is a unique chance to be almost like an individual hotel while still being a big player. We just learned from Wyndham that they are keen in buying brands, which makes sense because innovation normally is not done by the big players. Mostly innovation or, let's say, disruptive concepts are coming from abroad, and then they are being bought or incorporated. There are very good examples also for Accor, to mention also Accor, because we have Accor also in the room, or there's also Deutsche Hospitality. So there are brands developed by somebody else, and then, you know, maybe being disruptive, being more innovative, being more different than before, and then being incorporated into a big system delivery. Nevertheless, these collection brands, they offer the charm of being an independent hotel while still being a big player. And that's something which is also interesting for us because it gives more flexibility in design, look and feel. I don't know if this is per se a lifestyle hotel. I don't think so. It's more like a boutique or individual character hotel, which might have also their fans. And Ruby is similar. It's a new definition of a lifestyle, maybe, this lean luxury, which could be interpreted by everybody what is lean luxury, actually. It's a good word. So yes, that's a big trend since longer time already, and I think it will continue because now we see new collection brands popping up. Hyatt also, to mention Hyatt, we're doing 2 Unbounds, or Destination by Hyatt. So they're always reinventing new collections. It's hard to follow sometimes how many there are on the market. But it's an interesting fusion of being an independent individual hotel, maybe innovative, maybe a little bit more disruptive from design and concept, while still being a big player in the back with the delivery of Bonvoy or whatever system.
Thank you very much. How about Tim? Sorry, Remy.
No worry. Lesson learned. I mean, that's many lessons learned, I think, over the past 2 years. I think what changed very much in 2022 is obviously like how optimistic we're able to look at the world again, right? I mean, for us, it was like if you look at Europe, Middle East, and Asia, that's 9% increase in RevPAR over 2019. So just that was incredible to see. And I think what that is, though, like behind the numbers, right? Because I think numbers are great, and it's always, I mean, we all know that we live by them. It's really important. But I think you also have to look a little bit deeper, right? To what you were saying about the brand being maybe a tagline or like something that's a bit empty sometimes. I think for me, a brand, and I come from the brand side, right? So you have to be a little bit kind of like nice to me in that sense. But for me, it's much more profound than that. It's much more about the humans behind it and kind of like the humans who create it and who have the leeway of being that disruptor in the market, but also the people who then bring it to life in an actual hotel. I think that's where it gets, the bread gets made, in a sense. In a sense, what I mean by that, I guess, is that what we learned from the pandemic, especially in like a very difficult environment, is that you need to hold on to amazing people, because at the end of the day, that's who will take you through really tough times. And I think we can all agree that if you think about some of your best team members across the past few years, I think that's been who has kept your business afloat and has helped us to come through the other end in a very good position. I think for us that was a very big lesson. We were probably out of the bigger players. I think we kept a very big amount of our people on board, and that was a very big risk. But our CEO Keith was very keen on making that happen and trying to take the risk really to do that. But then that meant that we could rebound much more quickly, and also our exposure in terms of region is quite different. So we could make the most of when lockdowns were ending some place, and kind of reopening in others, and we could obviously kind of balance that out a little bit. So for us, that having that, make sure that you don't have your eggs in the same basket, all of your eggs in the same basket, I suppose, and keep on to amazing people. I think that's been our main key. And I'm saying people in-house, but it's also people like great partners, for instance, on the partner side, but also on the architecture and design, and on the development side, and everyone involved in the process. So yeah, having that is very important.
Thank you very much.
But you were on the subject ESG, right? Mm-hmm. So let's make a little bit, of advertisement also, for IHG. Six Senses, okay, knew what is ESG long before we started, hopping on that train. Because at the end of the day, we, from a development perspective, every time I mention ESG, everyone says, oh my God, that's going to cost a lot of money, okay? Everybody always thinks about the building, okay? If a guest stays at your hotel, they're certainly interested, how much water do you consume, how much energy, etc., okay? Now you can manage that, okay? It's gonna cost money if you do better insulation or the building materials you use, etc. But the long-term environmental benefit is if you teach your guests and you educate them. And Six Senses has been doing this over years and years since Sono founded that. Yeah? Initially, they didn't know. They just thought, let's give it a holistic approach, on how we live, okay? How we treat our environment, what we eat, etc., etc. I've just been to Six Senses again and got reminded. Yeah?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, really, because they do workshops, okay? They give them the people travel half across the world to stay at the Six Senses, yeah, a week there, to learn about themselves, to learn about the environment, to learn about the region where they are, about the food, about everything, okay? And I think that's much, much more important, yeah, for the local community and for the greater society itself, because then you get it, It's not about if you have a platinum certification. That's for some, institutional investor, so he can tick that mark and say, oh, I've placed something which is ESG or taxonomy conform in my fund. Okay, which is important as well, because that's the bigger picture. But I think we need to start at the level where you can impact, and that's ESG, and we can impact as human beings.
Absolutely.
Because if guests become followers and friends, it's not easy to get to some of the Six Senses resorts. You want to go there because it's not easy, just go and fly there. So if you manage that your hotel guests are becoming friends or followers, they are much more forgiving and much more loyal than just the guest who's booking through, booking.com or through whatever platform, because they are loyal to the brand and to what you offer as a brand. And that's not so easy to achieve, by the way.
Absolutely. And I think in the ESG, we also have the S, which is in one sense, the staff or the people they work for you, but also what are you giving back to the society as such, and especially in times where maybe the surrounding of your hotels is not doing so well and have maybe some problems, and we see we have a war in Europe. So what is actually the S mean, for example, for brands like Intercontinental or Marriott?
I think on the side, and I think to your point, right, it's a very wide topic, and I think there's always that sentiment that it will cost money. Which is a really terrible reason not to do something, as long as you can prove that there's returns at the back of it, right? So it's like, what's the upside of it? Which I think we don't maybe talk about enough. And I think the upside is enormous, to your point, whether it be on the personal level as a guest, but also across the business in terms of creating that value. I think in terms of where to start or some of the touch points that you can work on, that can start from the get-go, right? So how do you recruit your team? How do you recruit your team from different backgrounds? How do you recruit your team? I'm talking about the colleagues that would be working in that hotel, right? How do you recruit your team from the neighborhood in which you will be building that place? How do you make sure that your partners that you're working with are from that neighborhood as well, or from that city? How do you make sure that you create that almost that hub for the community to just like gather? For instance, when in the States, when there were some controversial issues on like where to vote during the presidential election,
Okay.
like a lot of our Kimpton there became like polling booth, so you could actually go to your local Kimpton and vote there directly. And it's a small thing, and for us it was a very natural thing to do because it was during the pandemic, so it's not like we were extremely busy anyway. So we're like, why not? But that became really important because people remember that. They remember that that's what you did, even though you were in a really terrible situation, but you wanted to be a part of that community because that's who you are at the end of the day. Every hotel is an incredible opportunity to do good in that community, right? And I think that's where you can like start to look at all the little things that you can do across the board, and that doesn't cost necessarily money, right? To your point, I think we think about the LEED certification and things like that, and obviously that has a huge impact in terms of cost. But there's many other things that you can do that have either little or almost no impact and actually give you a lot of benefit at the back of it. And I'll just stop there, but just an example, right? If you look at Hawk, who's our head bartender at the Everly in Hollywood, I do encourage you to follow his Instagram just because the man's amazing and has the most amazing mohawk you'll ever see. But the man was not a bartender when he started with us, but became one of the most respected bartender probably in the US, thanks to like us giving him a chance and him being able to really develop like his platform and his creativity through that. And I think that's a great example of like how do you think about left field a little bit and kind of like hire people that are a little bit different but super interesting and people that you're super excited to work with. And I think that's really, really important.
Thank you very much. I mean, before we close the panel, we would like to look into the future and have our crystal ball here. So what is going to be next? What keeps us cool and hip in this industry? Is it going to be a lifestyle hotel or is it something completely different? And we start with Tim.
Yeah, I think the subjects were touched on already. It's about optimization, digitalization, and still at the same time creating a great experience. So I think in the guest-facing part, we see even more experience, more detailed definition in branding, and more, let's say, niche products, even focusing on certain elements. Whilst in the back office side, we see more optimization. We will see maybe some robots being introduced where they can be, but freeing up the resources for the staff to focus on the experience. So yeah, I think that's gonna be quite some changes in the digitalization optimization part.
Okay, thank you very much, Roland.
Well, as we've all heard in the last couple of months or 1 or 2 years, everyone is heading out to resort hotels again, so leisure is the next big thing. I've been in leisure for the last 30 years. I think it's going to be a slow process because everyone says we're going to revolutionize leisure. There's certainly, what I've just mentioned, for example, with Six Senses, far more opportunity to impact and to really turn around a lot of family-run hotels, smaller chains, etc., where you have opportunities for innovation. But to me, I think it's going to be about the hotel stay itself. Yeah? We invested in Numa in the middle of the pandemic. To me, it was initially a no-go concept, because you're talking to somebody who's been in the hotel business where you had hundreds of employees every day, making sure that the guest experience is top-notch, and then going into, actually, we don't need any staff at all anymore. Mm-hmm. Why do we need that? But then the developers started thinking and say, what had happened in the years 2015, 16, 17, a rally for locations, a building cost rally, real estate, everything got more expensive, and everyone wanted to or needed higher leases and rents. So in order to get a semi-central location or be in a hip and good neighborhood, you know, in one of the major European cities, you had to pay a lot of rent. And that didn't work anymore for companies or brands or operations with 25, 30% GOP. So Numa thought completely radically new and said, we don't need the employees because our guest just wants the location, the neighborhood, and a place to sleep. Comfortable, designed, nice. And what happened? Bang, right in the pandemic, they got 85, 90% occupancy because people didn't need anything else or were forced to stay in places where they didn't have guest contact. So we thought the pandemic is going to be over, it's going to be a big dip. No, people have changed their mindset and say the way I stay is how I would like to stay. If I don't want a receptionist, if I don't want breakfast anymore, I just want a nice, clean and safe place to stay. So I think that's something which is going to develop really fast and further, also with the big brands.
Thank you very much. So let's have last sentence from Remy.
I'll try to be brief. I think definitely limited service in some segments will be interesting. I was just staying at the Hotel Indigo here in Vienna that just opened, and which is a lifestyle proposition a little bit in that idea of a limited service, and I think that's fantastic experience over there. But I think for us at least, one of the most exciting developments that we see, and we're not exactly sure yet where in the value chain that will bring the most value, but we know probably in quite a few of these touch points is the use of large language models in general. So like a GPT-4 is probably like the most well-known right now, right? But it's like, how do you augment your human elements and your amazing team via the right kind of human behaving software and technology, which I think for us has been the most interesting. And I think if you think about we've been talking about AI for a very long time, and actually the one way it's been the most successful is when they start behaving a lot more like humans. And again, I think that tells you a lot about the core of who we are as hoteliers and in hospitality, which is all about that human element that I don't think you can totally lose. So that's on my side.
One and the other. Okay, thank you.
I'll be very quick. It's the 4 E's: experience, entertainment, ESG, and emotions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.